Hello, I'm Sam Gibson. Every year, lovers of ragtime music gather in Starkville, Mississippi for the Charles Templeton Ragtime Music Festival, sponsored by the Mississippi State University Libraries. The festival is a celebration of a uniquely American genre of music, played by some of the best ragtime performers in the United States. The 2017 festival featured performers who embody the spirit of ragtime and jazz music. The Mississippi State University Libraries is proud to present the second of a two-part series of highlights from the 2017 Charles Templeton Ragtime Music Festival.
Dear old state, fight for that victory today. Hit that line and tote that ball. Cross that goal before you fall. And then we'll yell, 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 yell. For dear old state, we'll yell like hell. Fight for Mississippi State. Win that game today. Now, of course, the lyrics are originally about football. That's not appropriate. So I have updated them. Hail, dear old state, fight for that victory today. Overtime, seconds to go. Last points made by Mighty Mo. So then we'll yell, yell, yell. For dear old state, we'll yell like hell. Fight for Mississippi State, win that game today.
I think jazz to me means really what music means to me, is just happiness. Jazz is communication. It's just a language that we use. And we wouldn't have blues or boogie woogie or swing or jazz or hip hop or R&B or any of those things without first going through the ragtime era. I think jazz inherently to me is more improvisational, just because stylistically what it is music. In order to improvise in something, you have to know how the tune goes first. So, mechanically you learn how the piece goes either by reading it or by listening to it and then taking and either emulating it or, somehow associating it into what you do. But it's all still improvisation. It's how you feel at the moment, which is one of the things I think is great about it, because one performance, we could play a tune today and then tomorrow it'll be a completely different tune, just based on how we feel. Traditionally, how we know jazz, it's more associated with groups. The chemistry you feel with being in a band is really no different than it would be with just other individual players. And sometimes the chemistry is not there. I mean, you can have some of the best players in the world and you put them together and it just doesn't ignite. As long as you're all on the same page and wanting to communicate the same thing or something similar, then there's going to be a connection. There's going to be that electricity we talk about. It's very similar to Jeff Barnhart and I. The very first time he and I on two pianos sat down together, it was immediately, there was a connection there. It was immediately electric. We had just so many things in common when it came to performing, even though we come from completely different backgrounds. I came more from the classical side of things and arranged music, and he came from the more improvisational side, where he sat down and was able to sight read stuff and could pull off pretty much any tune he'd ever heard. When we got together, we found that the two of us together was greater than the sum of our parts. That's a big part of it, the ability to listen and realize that the spotlight is not always on you. It shouldn't be. The spotlight is on the music. The spotlight is on whoever is soloing at that time. I think the biggest thing is that the music is that great connector. And then it doesn't matter what background you come from. It doesn't matter how you feel about this item or whatever. You can always find connection in music. The only thing that matters is that we're enjoying the music together. We're enjoying the camaraderie. We're all understanding that we're all just people and we're all sharing part of the human condition. I mean, I can't imagine anybody thinking that life would be better without music.
I'll double dare you, hey, lend me your ear. Take off your hi-hat, let's get friendly. Don't be a scaredy cat, what do you care, can't you take it there? I'll double dare you to kiss me and then I'll double dare you, please do it again. And if that look in your eye means what I'm thinking of, I'll double dare you to fall in love with me. I'll double dare you, you got it. I double dare you. Kiss me and then double dare you. Come over here. Take off your hi-hat, let's get friendly. Don't be a scaredy cat. What do you can't get, you take it there. I double dare you to kiss me and then I double dare you do it again. And if that look in your eye means what I'm thinking of, I double dare you to fall in love with me. I double dare you.
I'm not only a leader, I'm a sideman, and I do a lot of things in the music business. So what's it like being a band leader? It's not all just being up on stage and being in the spotlight. It just means that I get to play the arrangements that I've written. I get to play with the musicians that I like to play with. I'm fortunate in that I do get to work oftentimes with the same guys. And we have a saying that all the bands in New York are the same, only the leader changes. I'll have him in my band, I'll be in his band, and then we'll both be in somebody else's band. The name of the band came from one of our very first jobs, in fact, our second job. Our second performance was a concert on the West Coast. I'm from Los Angeles, so I was able to organize something out there. It was in the very famous old performance hall called the Variety Arts Center. And upstairs there was a beautiful room, lavishly decorated, called the Roof Garden. And that was our second performance, so I called us the Roof Garden Jazz Band. Improvisation is one element of jazz that has been consistent from the very beginning up until the present. In 1917, it was dance music, and the fact that the guys were improvising was incidental. They weren't trying to improvise, they weren't trying to do inventive things, and they weren't thinking that even 5 years later, musicians like Louis Armstrong would be judged based on their improvisational ability. The records say for dancing, and that's what people wanted. It is a unique and captivating style of music. It still retained a lot of the elements of ragtime, has not yet transitioned over into jazz. And for me, I hear this music from the very first time I heard it when I was about 17. It has a captivating appeal to it. It's hypnotic, and it has that effect now on me, and certainly had that effect in 1917 on the public. And this is a perfect example. It's a hot one. Clarinet, marmalade. We're going to have a nice jam on this. Get it? Marmalade, jam. Good, right? That was a new one.
You're well preserved. I don't mean to be seedy.
Oh, boy.
After this, maybe you'd like to do a Jelly Roll Morton piano solo.
I hope I won't spread myself too thin.
Put us out of our misery. Right. Just be nice to me or you won't get your bread. Get it?
All right, I'm toast.
Okay.
Maybe we should just do this for the rest of the night. This is much more entertaining. Are you ready, Jeff?
Yes, I'm. No, hang on. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Just let me know when he's ready.
This weekend we're recreating the recordings that the original Dixieland Jazz Band made starting 100 years ago. Well, 100 years ago in 1917, the original Dixieland Jazz Band made the first jazz recordings. And there were instrumental bands already playing sort of transitional stuff that sounds like the phrasing of ragtime, da 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 da, but with more looser rhythms, different instrumentation coming in. This was the first time that jazz was stamped on it, and that started a wave of copycat bands that set off the chain of evolution that would continue and is still continuing to branch off into even more varieties of music today. The original Dixieland Jazz Band were not formally trained. 4 out of 5 of them didn't read written music, and they were from this freelance network of players who mostly played parades and outdoor things in New Orleans. They played from a shared repertoire, so there's some Sousa in there. There's music of all these different ethnicities that were present in New Orleans and immigrant communities that they had to play their songs to play gigs for them. And all of that shows up in the music that they recorded, because they would play one section of sort of a Sousa thing and then put a classical theme in and then an Italian folk song, and it's played on more or less marching band instruments, cornet and trombone and drum set. It didn't stay that way very long. It very quickly evolved. It got to New York, and classically trained musicians who were already working there took this new jazz stuff and did their interpretation of it. So we're really sort of going to this snapshot in time and trying to make that come to life when we play this way. A jazz band playing what we call traditional jazz, or New Orleans style, or there's too much terminology, but what we're doing this weekend, Dixieland, each instrument has a role, and they're more or less derived from the instrument's roles in a marching band. So normally, or to start with, the trumpet or cornet plays the melody in its comfortable middle register. The clarinet answers that with florid high register, usually figures above that and filling in the spaces, and the trombone plays sort of what's called an ostinato, a rhythmic part underneath that, so the instruments written out fit like that. The trumpet doesn't play too high and interfere with the clarinet. The trombone doesn't play in its high register and interfere with the trumpet. The piano and banjo and bass all take care of the rhythm and chords. Drums keep time, and that's a pretty working model to start with. And you can always switch roles or subtract things. The banjo could play the melody, but to start with, we each have our assigned roles, and each player has to be sensitive to what the others are doing so as not to interfere and to adequately support and complement each other.
So there was in addition to the waltz, there was a whole...
That's a long one. Sorry.
Don't do what you did before and make it even longer. There was a whole exotica craze that swept through American popular song in the teens and 20s. Lots of tunes about faraway lands. And many of them, in fact, most of them, were written by composers while they were sitting in their offices in New York City. But it was a sensation. And in fact, this next one was written by the pianist at that time with the ODJB, a man named J. Russell Robinson, who also wrote some great rags. And he wrote this song called Palestina. Palestina, which told the story of a gal named Lena from Palestina. Let's see if I can remember a little bit of the words. In the Bronx of New York City lives a girl who's not so pretty. Lena is her name. Such a clever girl is Lena. How she plays her concertina. Really, it's a shame. She's such a good musician, she got a swell position to go across the seas to entertain. And so they shipped poor Lena way out to Palestina. But she made such a hit that she's there yet. They say that Lena is the Queen of Palestina just because they like her concertina. She plays it day and night. She plays with all her might. She never gets it right. But how they love her, want more of her. I heard her play once or twice. Oh, murder. Still, it was nice. It gets better. She was fat, but she got Lena pushing on her concertina down old Palestina way. And then there's a second verse, but we're running out of time. So here it is, the instrumental version of Palestina.
Continue your travels back into one of music's greatest eras by visiting the Charles Templeton Music Museum. Housed on Mississippi State University's campus in Mitchell Memorial Library, the Charles Templeton Music Museum explores the business of music. It is complete with a collection of musical instruments, an abundance of sheet music, Victor talking machines, and much more. Stop by anytime Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m.